In John chapter 6, Jesus speaks to a large crowd, and he says to the people, "I'm the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Sometimes, have you noticed that big moments in life can cause big problems, right? Like an actor's mind goes blank at the moment of his or her big line, or maybe a singer forgets the words to a song in their big moment, or an NBA player airballs a free throw at a clutch time in the game, or maybe the bride can't stop laughing through the entire ceremony or crying. I've pastored weddings where both has happened, or the preacher calls the groom by the wrong name. I may have had that happen to me at one point. But there are moments, big moments in life, that have a tendency to reveal some things about ourselves. I had a moment like that, kind of this big moment a number of years ago. It was on a Thursday afternoon, and I was struggling to decide what to preach on Easter Sunday. More than 30,000 people would come to one of our weekend services, and so I felt a lot of pressure mounting. I wanted to say something that would cause people to want to come back, right? Because a lot of people only come on Easter or maybe Christmas Eve, those once or twice a year people, and I wanted to entertain them. I wanted to say something that would make them like coming to church, and it was a big moment for me. And so I was trying to think of, what should I say to them? And the thought struck me as I was sitting trying to think of what to preach on Easter weekend. What did Jesus say in his big moments? When he had his Easter-type crowds, what did he say? And John 6 is an example of a moment like that for Jesus. There are huge crowds, and in John 6 we read that Jesus fed these large crowds, that he took a boy's sack lunch of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, and he supernaturally provided food for more than 5,000 people. And he's become very popular with the crowd at this point, right? I mean, he's their meal ticket. He's provided food for them, so much food that there's now food left over. They camp out. They sleep at that location for the night, and they wake up the next day, and they're hoping for, another meal. They're hoping the buffet opens up for breakfast and that Jesus is going to feed them again. But when they wake up, there's this huge crowd, but Jesus is nowhere to be found. He's not around. And so they start looking for him. They finally found him. He's gone ahead to the other side of the lake. But when they catch up to Jesus, Jesus says, "Yeah, I'm sorry, the all-you-can-eat buffet has been shut down." And it's in this context, with this huge crowd, Jesus has become very popular, that Jesus says in John 6, he says, "You're looking for me because you saw the signs that I performed." He says, "You're looking for me because you ate the food that I provided." But then he challenges the crowd. He asks them if he's enough. In other words, when the meals stop, when the miracles don't work out, am I going to be enough for you? And Jesus says, "I'm the bread of life. I'm the living water." And he wants to make it clear that what he is looking for are followers that will not just be traveling with Jesus for the free meals, but will be committed to him. And the Bible tells us at the end of that story that many of the people who had been following him turned back and went home. John chapter 6, verse 66 says, "And they no longer followed him." And see, Jesus, for them, wasn't enough. They were following Jesus for what they could get out of it. They wanted to follow Jesus close enough to get the benefits from him, but not so close that it would require anything from them. And Jesus makes it clear in that big moment that he was more interested in their level of commitment than in the size of the crowd. So I want you to just kind of ask yourself that question. Why are you following Jesus? Maybe a way to help you be honest with this is to think of a time where he didn't provide the meal the way that you thought he would. In other words, he didn't answer a prayer the way that you had hoped or the way you thought he should. So how did that affect your relationship with him? I want to ask you to go back, read the story in John chapter 6. Just think of a time where you felt like Jesus was all you had, and then ask yourself this question: is he enough?